Welcome in, everybody, to the newest episode of All Things NBA from A to Z, presented by Ballislife. I'm Chris Persianen here alongside Zach Noble, and last night was the beginning of the 2024 NBA play-in era. So we've got a very special guest with us here today. If you're on YouTube, you can already see you're about to hear from Mr. Jason Timpf from the Volume Sports. Jason, first of all, what were your impressions of last night as an NBA fan and enjoyer of the sport where the round orange thing goes in the other round orange thing? What'd you like? What'd you not like about last night?
So I had zero feel on the Kings Warriors game. You could have talked me into any result. I would have believed, the Warriors kind of stiff arming them and getting a win, Steph being incredible. I would have believed them getting destroyed. They ended up getting destroyed, right? The Lakers Pelicans game went almost exactly as I expected it. Like the Lakers are the better team to me by a substantial margin. The Pelicans have been a team that I've been down on all year. I've viewed them basically as the most fraudulent of the top 10 teams in the Western Conference. Main reason why is their defensive front court is abysmal. And so anytime they run into a team with some real playmaking that can get them to that can find the openings on the backside of their defense, they're heavy in ball pressure, heavy playing passing lanes. They force a lot of turnovers. They try to run out the other way. And so if you can take care of the basketball and find those openings, you'll do fine. I thought the Lakers, when they went up 18 in the third quarter, just completely relaxed. And if anything, that was more of a choke job than it was anything else. I thought as long as they had their defense set in the half court, they did pretty well against Zion. They just gave up a lot of transition cross matches and brush screens to give up mismatches. But for the most part, the main reason why I was expecting that game to be close is it's just really hard to beat a good team twice in a row, especially after you humiliate them. And honestly, I was generally impressed by how much of that game the Lakers actually managed to dominate. I expected that to be close throughout, and instead they basically ran them. And then when they went up 18, they went into chill mode and almost got burned, but they never actually gave up the lead. Every single time the Pelicans tied the game, they just went down and got a bucket and were able to get stops. And I feel bad for Zion because that was a big
Yes.
time bounce back after he was completely embarrassed in the Sunday game, and he came back in a big way and showed that he has some fight in him. I thought it was really interesting that he was like picking on AD, like give me a ball screen, give me Anthony Davis. I want this matchup, and he was going right through him like he wasn't even there. Now, obviously, AD was a little banged up, but I thought that was a really impressive performance.
40 and 11, Zion Williamson, your playoff environment debut will be remembered. That is going to be, we're 10 years from now, we're going to see a post like, remember when Zion, you know, but I want to take the conversation in a direction right now that is, if you're a Pelicans fan, might make you want to rip your earbuds out. We got to talk Willie Green, right? And I think what you said about Zion going at AD is perfect because it kind of sets me up to mention how Green has his guys he likes to play, not even because of who they are, but because of what they represent. Like he loves the Larry Nance minutes because he loves feeling like he's going small, but then he's got to line up a small lineup with two non-shooters. And I don't know that it really pays off. The one Green decision I need to ask you about this second is Brandon Ingram watching crunch time from the sideline. What did you think about that? What did you think about that, especially once Zion exited the game and went to the locker room, leaving BI out? Dyson Daniels goes in and loses his defender on the first defensive possession when he's in for defense. Like, what did you make of the BI benching?
So I didn't have a problem with it. And the main reason why is like the way the Pelicans have been winning as of late is centered around Zion and shooting off the ball and defense, ball pressure, playing passing lanes, like we talked about earlier. Brandon Ingram is not only a very different play style than the way they like to play. He's a methodical half court pull up shooter, right? But in addition to that, he's kind of redundant with CJ McCollum and he's out of rhythm. He had barely played in that particular game. And so bringing him back in that fourth quarter sequence, I didn't think he would have played well if he did. The last thing I'll say is like, do you guys remember in the Team USA saga this summer how bad Brandon Ingram was?
Yes.
And
Yep.
the thing is Brandon Ingram is one of those guys where like if he gets to play point forward, I actually think he's highly underrated. He's one of those guys that like he can get you 28, 7, and 7 and make some pretty high level reads and pick and roll. He's one of the best wing playmakers out of pick and roll in the sense that he consistently can make the skip pass to the weak side corner, which so many forwards around the league just struggle to make. Brandon Ingram's a good basketball player, but you kind of have to build your offense around him. The Pelicans were used to playing a certain way. And the other thing, too, down the stretch of that game, there was a set defense kind of like tactic that the Lakers were using that I didn't agree with that was working well for the Pelicans, and that was chasing Jose Alvarado over screens. Jose Alvarado is a 33% pull-up shooter this year, field goal percentage, not a guy that's going to confidently step back, especially in a situation like that. His the previous three catch and shoot three he had taken out of the corner was like a foot and a half long over the back of the rim. Like I didn't understand having D'Lo chase over the top because that allowed Jose to just get down into the lane, engage AD, drop it off to Larry Nance, layups and dunks. So honestly, like I thought they got solid enough shots down the stretch of the game. I don't think Brandon Ingram was the difference. If anything, it's an indicator of roster imbalances on this team in the sense that like you have a center in your starting lineup that you can't play against any sort of real team. And then you've got two guys in CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram who basically do the same thing. And so that's something they got to address this summer. And you got to get some sort of rim protection, basically a bigger version of Larry Nance, a rim protector that can shoot next to Zion. And then you got to turn CJ and Brandon Ingram into one of those guys and use the other to bring back that specific type of center is the direction that I would go.
I love the Jose Alvarado note. I wasn't even thinking about that, but I mean, watching the game, that definitely happened way more often than it should have. And I think that's what kind of helped get them back in the game a little bit, open things up. And I've always said Zion and BI don't really fit. I just the point forward thing, that's a strong note. I would never build a team around Brandon Ingram either, but being a 1B or just the B in general, and he's a guy that you need the perfect fit with. So I think that's going to have to be addressed, him and Zion going forward. Not something we need to touch on today, but when did you think the game was over? Like, did you think, I know you said the Lakers were relaxing, but did you think the Pelicans had a legit chance getting back in it, or was it when Zion went down?
I never felt threatened for a second. The thing is like I hate there are so many things I hate about this Laker team, but they're one of their big, one of the big pieces of their basketball character is they want to do the bare minimum. It's the reason why they're in the play-in to begin with. They got it. They got that in-season tournament championship and then immediately went into chill mode. Obviously, Darvin Ham didn't help that situation, but this has been a characteristic of theirs for a long time. And because of their bad defensive personnel in the backcourt in particular, and because LeBron and AD have a bad habit of jogging back in transition defense when they don't care, because of those things, when it goes bad for the Lakers, it goes bad quick. Like they'll give up a 10-0 run in a couple of minutes. And like all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, we were up 18. Now it's a 7-point game. That's crazy. Like that happens a lot with this particular team. I thought I felt like as any time that they actually needed to get a bucket, they were able to get a really good shot. Like even down the stretch of that game, it was like, it wasn't D'Lo making something crazy. It was a wide open catch and shoot three in the corner. Rui Hachimura, the big shots that he hit in the fourth quarter of the game, they were wide open catch and shoot threes. Like if anything, the only one of the main reasons that game was as close as it was is LeBron and AD probably missed 16 or 17 shots within 4 feet of the rim. Like that, which is unheard of for them. They both shoot around 70% in the restricted area. So honestly, like I never was concerned about their ability to out execute them down the stretch of the game, even with Zion on the floor. Like I mentioned at the beginning, for the most part, their set defense handled Zion well. It was cross matches, transition, and help situations where Zion was killing them.
Yeah. So holding that thought, going up against Denver, they're very, very offensively versatile. And, we had Adam Mares on the show who talked about how he's pretty confident they're the best 5-man lineup in basketball. I was too. Zach was too. Obviously the expectations are kind of in flux for what the Lakers will do against a team that 4-0'd them the last time they matched up. But what are you seeing in your crystal ball that LeBron and AD and company can accomplish against this Denver team now in this first round matchup?
So a couple different things. First of all, I think the Lakers let go of the rope a little bit last year. I thought that the Lakers were the best team that Denver played in that postseason run. I know it sounds crazy to say, but like Denver wanted to send a message to the Lakers, and I thought like a lot of their struggles against teams like Minnesota and Miami had more to do with them not feeling really threatened. And I think that they just wanted to send a message to the Lakers. And that I don't think you have to look much further than the shooting percentages. Like Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., those guys were just laser focused in that Lakers series in particular. For the most part, though, every single one of those games was close. The only game that wasn't close was game 2. And if I remember correctly, the Lakers had a substantial lead in the second half of that game. They just blew it. And then the Nuggets killed them in the fourth quarter. It really comes down to late game execution for them. The main reason why I say that I'm less worried about them letting go of the rope in this series is because it's a first round series. I would rather play them later on. Why? Because I think the Lakers can get to an even higher level defensively than they're at right now, just through a couple more weeks of good habits. But also because Jared Vanderbilt, he's a guy that hasn't played in any of the Denver matchups this year. Last year, he was unplayable because the Lakers were spotting him up in the corner. That's not how the Lakers would use him. That's not how they've been using him this year. They've been using him in horn sets, up at the elbow, screening, cutting. He's a fulcrum instead of a spot up guy this year, which is a big part of why he was so impactful offensively when he was healthy. So when I look at this particular team, I'm getting a better version of LeBron James than I got last year. Anthony Davis, more or less the same guy. I think Austin's a better player than he was last year. D'Lo's clearly a better player than he was last year, right? Rui Hachimura, clearly a better player than he was last year. That grouping is better. I think Denver's a little better than they were last year too. But the beautiful thing here is the Lakers can't hang their hat on we made it to the Western Conference Finals. Like, it's not like we lost to Denver, but we won 2 rounds. This is a successful season. It's like, no, this is the first round. Like, there is no letting go of the rope. You either lose in the first round or you beat Denver. Those are the only 2 potential outcomes here. I think that's going to make it so that they kind of hang on to the rope longer when they catch the haymakers from Denver. And you better believe those haymakers are coming. But it's really going to come down to this. Last year, Jokic badly outplayed AD. Jamal Murray badly outplayed LeBron James. If LeBron James can outplay Jamal Murray, which I think he's a better player, he can. And if AD can at least keep it close with Jokic, you get role player contributions, a couple schematic things go your way. This is a winnable series, but you'd be foolish not to pick Denver. Denver deserves to be the favorite. I'd probably make it like 70-30 in Denver's favor at this point.
It's like the
30
Lakers are
still?
the smartest kid in the class who just waits until 10 minutes before the deadline to start that essay. So
30
yeah,
still pretty impressive though. I mean,
I think this Laker team is good.
No, I've been high on them all year, and the fact that like they're one of the best 8 seeds ever. I mean, they won 47 games. That's freaking good. And they didn't have Gabe Vincent for a lot of it, and I feel like they didn't really get good till the end of it. Yet they still won plenty of games, which a lot of people disregard. And Kris was hating on them all year, but honestly, looking at numbers from last year, like the eye test to me, I like the depth of this team a little better than last year. But I mean, all those guys you mentioned getting a little bit. I think they're playing better together as a team. So I will give you that. They know their roles a little better. Austin's definitely gotten better. LeBron, yes, because it's the first round and not the second round. I would say he's going to be better for sure. But you didn't mention AD. So I mean, how much is his injury going to come into play? And I don't think he's necessarily as good as last year, but necessarily banged up. Maybe he can get to 100%. I don't know where you at there, because I mean that's what it comes down to, obviously. And defensively are the only numbers I really can pick apart from this year's Lakers team to last year that are that drastic. But I think they turn it up in the playoffs. It's just figuring out the big matchup. I mean, Aaron Gordon and Jokic, I think.
Yeah, I think they're the way I look at it, I think they're a better defense than the numbers show, just because for the most part, they were literally just trying to outscore people this year. Like they were the 3rd best offense in the league since January 7th, which was a 46 game sample size. So for more than half the season, they were just outscoring teams. But as you saw in those Pelican games, like, first of all, I thought Austin Reeves basically locked up CJ McCollum. Like Austin Reeves deserves way more credit for the work he's done as a perimeter defender, especially down the second half of the season than he's been getting. D'Lo is a total and complete weak point. I don't trust him in any way on the defensive end. He's the main weak point. Rui, I thought, did a really good job on Brandon Ingram yesterday, but Rui in general has been engaged defensively. He struggles with screen navigation, but he's pretty good at the other areas of defense, which, by the way, is a little bit of an issue. That's why they have to put him on Jokic. Can't put him on Michael Porter Jr. because he can't chase anybody. And so that's part of the issue that they have there. With Anthony Davis, I was really disappointed in him yesterday, but I do want to give him some credit for the injury that he was dealing with. But I thought he more or less no-showed by his standards what he's capable of.
That last rebound
he got some big ones.
It was an epic clincher. That rebound will always stick out to me. Like, I think if he doesn't make that rebound, I mean, he doesn't get the foul. I mean, that stretch and box positioning he had was incredible.
Mm-hmm. And he had another offensive rebound put back earlier in the fourth quarter, one that was along the baseline. And then he had a big block on CJ McCollum on a drive. Like, he made plays because he's Anthony Davis, but I thought that he was kind of coasting through. And here's the thing, like, last year, Jokic wiped the floor with him. AD could not score on him in one-on-one. I think he went something crazy, like 0 for 6 in one-on-one moves against Jokic in that series. Like, it was so bad. He couldn't guard him. Like, AD's impact was, with exception of game one when he was just making all those shots in pick and roll, like, he was mostly bad in that series. And so that's the big one that has to swing in the Lakers' favor. Like, AD's just got to do a better job. And the back spasms, I think, concern me to a certain extent. One last thing I wanted to point out, like, this is a fundamentally different Laker team than last year. Last year's Laker team sucked at offense. That was a major weak point for them. This year, they are legitimately a very good offense, not just in the aggregate, but also in crunch time. And their main weakness is against switching defenses, which, by the way, is a little bit of how they got stagnant yesterday against the Pelicans. And the Nuggets do switching with Jokic off the floor, but with Jokic on the floor, for the most part, they're going to try to keep Aaron Gordon on LeBron. They're going to try to keep Jokic in his drop coverages. They're going to hedge and recover with Jamal Murray. So that plays right into the strengths of the Laker offense, which is their 5-out attack, getting the defense in rotation, playing drive and kick basketball. I think the Lakers will be able to score in the series. The question is, will they ever be able to get a stop on Jokic? They tried, for the most part this season, Rui on Jokic with AD and help, and Jokic just scored over Rui at will. There was a critical mistake, I thought, from Darvin Ham in their last matchup. Jamal Murray played and D'Angelo Russell played, because D'Angelo Russell missed the earlier game in January. But everyone played except for KCP, if I remember correctly. And then in crunch time, Darvin Ham went to Cam Reddish against Jamal Murray. And in addition to just murdering their offense, he's just not a good defensive player. Like, that's honestly the big time Cam Reddish minutes were one of the biggest mistakes the Lakers made this season. It just was complete. He was the 13th best player on the team, and he was playing like 26 minutes a night for a good chunk of the season. But Jamal Murray just absolutely barbecued him in that last game down the stretch. So I think to play the right guys, LeBron plays better in crunch time. That's their pathway. They have a pathway there, but no doubt Denver deserves to be the favorite.
It's tough, right? Because like maybe 3 million people could like write on the wall, you know, the chalkboard over and over again, like, I will not bet against LeBron James. I will not bet against LeBron James. But
not the same LeBron, but yeah,
we're in this era
LeBron
now.
is playing at a top 5 level right now. I was
good.
thinking about this last night. I was thinking about this last night. The only guys post All-Star break that are playing better than LeBron are Luka and Jokic. Literally.
Oh man.
Yeah, literally. He's the only player in the league post All-Star break to be averaging at least 27 points per game on at least 50% from the field, at least 40% from three. He's one of only 3 players in the league to average 25, 7, and 7 this season. It's him, Jokic, and Luka. He's literally, in this span post All-Star break, he shot 58% from the field and 45% from three with 9 assists per game. LeBron James, it's everyone talks about it like it's this cute story, like, oh, LeBron, he's 39, look at how good he's playing. He is kicking everybody's ass. He has been Zion was kicking everyone's ass over the last part of the season, and LeBron locked him up. LeBron literally, I'm flabbergasted. I can't believe it. I literally think right now he's a top 5 player in the world. It doesn't even make sense to me, but shout out to him, man. He just keeps making it happen.
Well, I will throw in
Yeah, he was 1 for 8 last night in the fourth quarter. So
and still dominated every facet of the game. He could
Yes,
not buy a bucket last night and dominated every facet of that game and hit the biggest shot of the game, in my opinion. The jab step jumper over Herb Jones with like a minute and a half left.
That was I laughed.
he's
when
been
that went in.
great, but
I was just like
top 5. I'm vehemently disagree
who's
with.
played better than LeBron over the last fourth of the season? I want to hear it.
Jalen
Do we need to get
Brunson.
into this?
Jalen Brunson's averaging 31 points a game since All-Star
LeBron's been
weekend.
better than Jalen. LeBron's been better than Jalen.
35 points a game in the month of April.
He's not even close to the type of defensive player that LeBron is when he's engaged. Not even close.
But when he's engaged,
but he is engaged now. He is engaged. LeBron's been really good defensively for weeks
in the playoffs
in all these must-win games.
Yeah, no. He knows
I'll take
zero
LeBron,
dark 30.
maybe.
So who else? Okay, let's give you Jalen. That's so we got Jokic, we got Luka, that's Jalen. So now LeBron's in fourth. Who's going to kick him out of fourth?
Not Shea.
Did you
Shea?
say Tatum and Shea?
You think Tatum's better than LeBron James? I think that's insane.
Right now, absolutely.
I would say definitely not Shea. I would say when on the court, and again, this is, like when LeBron's engaged, when Embiid's playing, I'm going Joe. But it's Joe.
Embiid. When has Embiid been consistently good in the playoffs?
I think Durant.
I thought we were talking the last quarter of the season.
No, I know, but but my point is, like, right now, if you're picking players to play a playoff series that starts Saturday, which is literally what we're about to do, who are you taking over LeBron? You're taking Luka, you're taking Jokic, you're taking Luka. I'm not taking another guy.
I'm taking Embiid, Luka, Jokic, Brunson, and LeBron's 5.
Okay, so there's top 5. I would take him over Brunson for sure.
Go ahead. I will give you
Zach.
5.
No, I'll give you guys either on Embiid and LeBron, just because Embiid's always a question mark. So that's one I'm okay with. But I mean, to take in the playoffs, I mean, it's a different question. But yeah, I'm still taking Shea over him. I'm still taking Booker and KD over him. I'm taking LeBron over. Yeah, I'm taking LeBron over Kawhi. As a Minnesota fan, you'd like to consider Anthony Edwards, but I'm not. I'd still take LeBron. Even
Kawhi has a better
Anthony
argument
Edwards
than KD or Booker.
Yeah, I don't see the case for KD or Booker. I don't see
Kawhi has a better case than both the Suns.
As good as Shea is, we've literally never seen him play a playoff series as a number 1 option. We know what LeBron looks like. Like, again, LeBron played in 2 must-win games on Saturday and Tuesday, and there was no safer bet that he would just be awesome, and he was freaking awesome in both games. He's just built for this type of environment too. Like, I will say this freely: I don't think LeBron was a top 5 player in last year's postseason. Last year's postseason, LeBron going into it wasn't the same level jump shooter, wasn't the same level athlete. LeBron James this season has been one of the best catch and shoot guys in the league. He's been the post All-Star break. He's been a deadly shot creator in every facet, pick and roll, post up, ISO. Like, he's playing at a level pretty damn close to what he was in 2020. That's literally what we're getting from LeBron right now. And he's been one of their best defensive players. All I'm saying is like, he's one of the 5 best players in the league right now. And I can't believe it. I wasn't expecting this. I was not planning on LeBron being top 5 going into this postseason. That is literally the level of basketball he has played for the last 2 or 3 months. That's the level he's been at.
I think people confuse their frustration with his lack of willingness to be engaged throughout the whole season. And they conflate that frustration they have with criticizing his game. So like that smart kid we were talking about earlier.
With anything. Yeah, I'm not arguing with anything Jason said there. I love the passion, everything behind it. The last thing I'm going to say on this is I will give LeBron his credit. He's definitely taken a step back and allowed other people to be a part of the offense. It's definitely like his decision-making and intelligence the last couple months has changed drastically from the player he was all of last year and at the beginning of the year. I thought he was trying to be this ISO player he can't be anymore. He's made decisions like he's focused more on fitting into an offense versus being the offense. And that's what really impressed me. I didn't think he could ever make that decision, and he has. So I will give him his credit there. So what's next on the agenda, Chris?
Just really quick, just reading his numbers. Last 22 games, 28, 8, and 10. 58% from the field, 45% from 3. They're plus 150 in his minutes and minus 94 with him off the floor. That is MVP level production. Like, I don't know what else to say.
You don't got to say anything else. That You spoke for it,
The
and
the
the numbers
wins
speak
come into
for it.
play too, and the defensive side of things. But yeah, I mean the numbers are there. The offensive numbers, you can't deny that.
Oh, 100%. Well, listen, let's stay out west. Let's talk about two California teams because I know Jason has takes to get off. Um, do we want to start with Keegan Murray showing everyone that that team is not a two-man show, or do we want to start with the funeral procession?
Dude, Keegan Murray blew me away down the stretch of the season. You know, it was funny. I read my comments for mailbag questions, and
Yeah.
often what I'll get is like fan perspective from teams that watch fans that watch teams every single night. And a couple months ago, one of my listeners was like, "Hey, like I know you're high on Jabari Smith Jr., but like Keegan Murray's closer to that than he is to like just a standard role player guy." And
Oh
so
shit.
I started watching Keegan Murray closer, and like he actually reminds me a lot of Klay Thompson in the sense that he's really quick on the perimeter and actually can guard smaller guards pretty damn well. And then in addition to that, he's turned in one of the best movement shooters in the league. He's like a 6'8" Klay Thompson. I have to completely reevaluate what his ceiling could be, because I absolutely think he's capable of being like a legitimate cog in a championship team. Whereas a year ago, I was thinking, role player, just basic
Same.
role player, just another Cam Johnson, that kind of thing.
I mean, he always had the defense, right? But like when you go back to the college tape and you see the post game he showed, I know he likes to
How
joke
good
with
do you
Mike
think his
Brown
defense
about it.
is, though?
So that's kind of the point. Like I thought he was a capable team defender that could guard. Like
Yep.
I did not see this like, oh, you can put him on Steph Curry and he could do a good job. I did not see that in his
But
potential.
was that a lot of Keegan, or was it Steph just being exhausted and his legs running dry?
It's a little bit of both, but like I'd credit I like because Steph, I pulled the numbers last night.
Yeah, he's been bad,
His last
really bad.
his the last chunk of the season he just hasn't been very good. But at the same time, like I don't really necessarily. I think it's a combination of factors. He obviously has gone down a little bit of a level, but teams are really throwing the kitchen sink at the Warriors. The book has been out pretty much since the Lakers series last year. If you throw the kitchen sink at Steph and you kind of tilt their offense towards their poor shooters, they will fall apart. That's pretty much what's been happening.
So Klay walking off the court was really slow. Took it all in. That was really noted by the media that he spent some extra time soaking it in. It felt like it was like his last dance or something. I kind of got that feeling from the clips I saw. I think this team needs to break up Klay and Draymond. I mean, they just need new faces. I think Steph needs to be re-energized. I just think they need more talent and help. I mean, what's your read on them right now? Just something quick, nothing crazy, and then we'll continue on here.
Yeah, so if they were going to make some sort of all-in trade, they needed to do it a year or two ago. So I don't really see
Yeah.
the point of it. Like, what are you going to do? Bring
Okay.
in Paul George, and Steph's not a top 10 player anymore, so you're gonna basically just have old Steph and old Paul George and be a mediocre team. Like,
Mm.
don't get me wrong, I'd love to see them do that because I'd love to see Steph and Klay and Paul George and Draymond in a center try to win basketball games. I'd love to see it, but there's a case to be made that it's just not good asset management. And so at this point, I think the more likely scenario is that they kind of just play it based on value. Like if you can bring Klay back at a discount, bring him back. If there's some sort of easy trade out there that's a roster upgrade, you take it. But I don't think they're going to throw
Mm.
Kuminga and a bunch of draft picks at some star. I just don't think that that's the right move at this point with the decline of their veterans.
Yeah, I think they're hoping that Kuminga and Pods become much better than they actually are right now. And Wiggins looked the best he's looked in a long time last night. I don't know if that means anything going forward. He's still Mr. Inconsistent Wiggins. We'll see. But I don't know, man. Yeah, it's tough because if you think you can get him around 15 to 25, I mean, that's probably still worth it to keep him together if you think Kuminga's got a lot to him. But yeah, he's not worth much in trade. So
I think Kaminga's got some
it's tough.
value. I think Kaminga's a good. I think Kaminga's
I'm
ceiling is
talking,
like a.
yeah.
I think his
Go.
ceiling is like a Jalen Brown type of guy. So like I think he could.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's high.
yeah. Well, no one can guard him on an island.
Dude,
Like
that's a
like
great take. I say Aaron
yeah.
How many
Gordon is
straight did he
like
have last night? 8?
Aaron Gordon's
It's
the
like
outcome
8
that I
straight.
think he will reach. I think Jaylen Brown's a really good ceiling.
Yeah, he's got a lot. Like he is literally a kid. Well, he's not literally a kid, but by NBA terms, he's a kid. Like he's super, super young. Like I think when he's 26, 27, he's going to be a dude who's like 23 to 25 points per game on like 60% true shooting and excellent defense. And that's Jaylen Brown.
I'm 5 months
So
older than John Kuminga.
yeah, see, there you go.
I October, May 2002, dude.
Why do you look so old, man?
He's awesome. I had him 5 in that draft. I think my revised take on him is that he'll be Aaron Gordon if he wants to be. He can be Jaylen Brown if he works for
Ooh,
it.
he's already, I mean, way better offensively than Aaron Gordon.
But I'm talking about role on a championship winning team. He's
Yeah.
not going to be out there
That's
creating
fair.
ISO
That's
bucket.
fair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like anyway, with Golden State, like when before the punch heard around the world or whatever corny name you want to call it, I was like they should keep Poole, they should keep Dre, and they should move Clay. Just a quick hitter here. Like would you prioritize keeping Clay at a discount, or you just would honestly? I guess my question is, would you be okay letting him just go?
I think the front office will probably be willing to let him go if he gets a decent offer, but I hope that he stays just because like I think the best version of Clay at this phase in his career is familiarity in a system playing a smaller role. And to me, with the Warriors, that makes perfect sense with him being either just basically the bench guard that comes in and just continues to run their motion offense the way that he does. Like, I still think Clay's a super useful player. He's just at this phase of his career. He's not a guy that's going to be dependable in big games because he's old. And so, like, you got to reflect that in his value. But I mean, if Orlando does throw a bunch of money at him, like if Clay wants to take one last payday, you can't fault the guy.
I get it. I get it. All right. Well, I want to go out east just for a little bit because Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be missing some of the start of this Pacers Bucks series. Before we knew that, what did you think about that series? And now knowing that, do you feel like Indiana is a team that can pounce on that? Like this kind of feels like when Luka was out, but Brunson still beat the Jazz. Like, do you think Dame and Chris have this locked down, or do you think Indiana makes the most of this?
I picked Indy in 6. If Giannis was healthy, I would have picked the Bucks, but I still think it would have been a long series. It's a really bad matchup for Milwaukee. It's not a fluke that they went 1-4. They were trying to win the in-season tournament game, and they were very much trying to win those the last two that the Pacers got, because they got them in Milwaukee. Then they went to Indiana. The Bucks wanted revenge, and the Pacers got them again. And they always get them the same way. They get them by, Milwaukee, obviously, for whatever reason, has never been able to figure out the offensive ceiling that they're supposed to have. They've been really bad offensively for a while now after starting the year extremely well offensively. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that. We won't get into it. But they, on their misses, Indy pushes in transition. Milwaukee's one of the worst teams in the league at keeping teams out of transition. Indy is one of the best teams at crafting transition possessions whenever they can, just kick head passes and running their lanes. They do damage in transition. And then basically Tyrese Halliburton just barbecues the deep drop coverage for the Bucks all the time. He's too good of a floater shooter, too good of a mid-range shooter. He's like literally from that spot on the floor over 50%. So like he just kills them in that spot. I think Patrick Beverley is going to be the biggest swing factor of this series. Because Tyrese Halliburton hasn't been very good since he hurt his hamstring, at least by his standards.
Right.
His percentages are down, his volume is down. Now, obviously, Siakam plays a little bit of a role in that, and Halliburton has been playing a little bit better in his last 10 games. He's like 19-9 on like 48% from the field and like 39% from three or something like that. Like he's starting to kind of look like Tyrese again. But Patrick Beverley, if he can do a good job on Tyrese and they hold up defensively long enough to go up 2-1 in the series, the Bucks, I mean, then yeah, Giannis comes back. I think they get it done. Everything looks good. But if the Pacers jump them early, like let's say the Pacers go up 2-1, meaning they split the games in Milwaukee, and then it's a buzzsaw game 3 where they run them off the floor. Like I don't think Milwaukee can beat Indiana 3 times in 4 games to end the series like that. Like it's just too bad of a matchup for them. So I think honestly, like everything comes down to if Milwaukee can just hold home court and go up 2-0 somehow, and hold up until Giannis comes back. I think they'll be fine. But to put it simply, this was the slowest team in the league before Giannis got hurt. And with Giannis out, they're just an abysmally slow-footed team. And Indy's probably the fastest team in the league.
As we're talking, breaking news from Adrian Wojnarowski: Zion Williamson out for the remainder of the play-in, so he will not be playing against Sacramento.
Hammer the Kings quick before the lines change.
It already felt like, is it all right, Jonte Porter? It already felt like that mini series was decided, but that's a big blow with Zion out. I don't think we need to spend time on it because I think any of us would have picked the Kings even with Zion in after that injury. But
I would have. I think the Pelicans have a chance to win.
really,
to put it, the Pelicans, the strength of their roster is their ability to defend on the perimeter, and Sacramento really depends on De'Aaron Fox to shot create for them, and speed and pushing and drive and kick, and like the Pelicans just match up really well with them. Obviously, Zion being out gives the Kings a much better chance, but there's a reason why the Kings went 0-5 against the Pelicans this year. They're a terrible matchup. They cannot score on them.
Love it.
And Green went switch heavy. He went switch heavy.
So you're
yesterday.
saying without Zion, they still have a chance.
They have a chance. I think, again, it's going to require really good CJ McCollum games, really good Trey Murphy game, really good Jose Alvarado, Brandon Ingram games. Obviously, holding up a Sabonis is going to be tricky on their front court without Zion, because like Zion actually I thought did a good job defending LeBron last night, because he just has a low center of gravity and he's quick side to side, so he can beat him to spots. But yeah, like I think I still think the Pelicans, especially at home, probably have a slightly better than 50% chance of winning that game.
Wow.
All right. So
Yeah.
last question on Milwaukee, Indiana, and then we'll move to one of the West series. Do you think this team without Giannis is as good or better than any Dame team he's ever had?
Oh, man.
I think the depth is there.
So here's
don't
the thing.
know if it's starting five.
They had those Blazers teams were really skilled on the perimeter, and they could really generate space. I think it's it's so funny looking at this Bucks team, because like I think one of the underrated elements for the way that Dame has struggled this year relative to his standards is he finally has this good defensive front court. Like, he never had that in Portland. He was always playing with just absolute tissue paper front courts defensively, which is why they never could make long playoff runs when Dame was in his prime. They just never had. It's the same reason why I don't believe in the Pelicans. You have to have your 4 and 5 have to be able to guard. It's just like an absolute must.
Shout out prime Wes Matthews.
Yeah, exactly. So like the bottom line is like with this particular team, they have that with Brook and Giannis, right? But they're, in general, that's kind of mucked up some of the spacing. And I think that's been a big part of why Dame hasn't been quite as good as he was last year. So I'll say that this is probably still, I'm going to say it's about as good as some of the best teams that Dame had in Portland, but I don't think it's demonstrably better. I think they're still really, really slow, and that can be a death sentence in specific matchups.
100%. I mean, it's tough because the Pacers are not a team that I philosophically believe in, right? Like, we've talked about what Pascal is a better basketball player than Buddy Hield. Everyone and their grandma's dog walker knows that, right? But what people don't acknowledge as much is the spacing they lost and didn't replace. And I think you can point to the injury for Halliburton, but you can also point to the change around him, and how it specifically fits his game. So that's going to be super interesting to see, just because of the kind of team Milwaukee is, the kind of team Indiana is. But there's one last series we want to ask you about that is going to be interesting to see, first and foremost, because it's going to be war. Round 3, the rematch of the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers. Jason, what are you thinking ahead of this series? I'm thinking war. Like, I'm thinking war of attrition between the Clippers, maybe one of the more talented teams in the league, the Mavericks, probably the hottest team in the league since Houston's rocket crashed back down to earth. What are we looking at here in this rematch?
So obviously the big question mark lingering over everything is Kawhi's injury, but let's just, for the sake of this discussion, just pretend he's healthy Kawhi. because I don't really see the point in discussing the alternative. The alternative, the Clippers are just going to lose. So because these teams are too evenly
and
matched.
in an ugly fashion, yeah.
Yeah. I think the big swing factor of this series is going to be the Zubac battle. And what I mean by that is like if the Mavericks can hang against Zubac with their small ball lineup, and their best version of a small ball lineup is with Kleba and PJ Washington in the front court together. They've been murdering teams with those two. And it's just because both of them are good on the ball and in help. And so they kind of bring this like layered approach to backline defense, which can be pretty impactful. And then they're typically playing someone like a Derrick Jones Jr. or Dante Exum at the 3, and they're getting good perimeter defense minutes out of that spot. They're not as good. You know, it's funny. Like I think the Suns, for instance, are way better on the back line offensively. Like when they get blitzed and trapped and they don't pee down their leg and turn the ball over and actually get the ball where it needs to get, they play drive and kick basketball and it looks beautiful. But like you can actually kind of play the Mavs into some guys that are not good shooters taking shots. You can force Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington and Kleba to take shots. And so there are some offensive limitations, but it's made them a very good defense and rebounding team over this tail end of the season. And so I think like what it'll tilt towards, and the reason why I think that matters is I think the starting lineup for the Mavs matches up poorly with the Clippers because you got to put PJ Washington on Kawhi, and you probably have to put Derrick Jones Jr. on Paul George, which is, first of all, I like Derrick Jones Jr. better on guards than I like him on forwards. He just gives up a little bit of size there. And then also that makes Kyrie guard James Harden. And like, yes, Kyrie is a much better defensive player than his reputation. But if you ask him to guard James Harden and he has to defend, 17 ball screens a game, that's going to wear him out to a certain extent as he's chasing over the top, right? If you can get to Kleba, then you put Kleba on Kawhi, PJ Washington on Paul George, Derrick Jones Jr. on James Harden. Love those matchups for Dallas. Much more likely to be able to hold up over the course of the series, but that depends on your ability to play Zubac off the floor. So, like, because if Kleba has to bang with Zubac, then he can't guard Kawhi, and so everything with this series is going to come down to which team can successfully run their small ball groups, and basically which can win that specific battle. I do think the Clippers will end up winning that battle because we know running drop coverage against the Mavs is a death sentence, and we know that switching with Zubac on Luka is a death sentence. And so I think it's going to tilt towards that specific 5-man grouping, meaning Kleba, Washington, Luka, Kyrie, and probably Dante Exum, maybe Derrick Jones Jr. And I think that group ends up out executing the Clippers and they get a win. I picked the Mavs in 6.
Mavs. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
I'm the exact same. I'll just say that. And mainly it's because Kawhi being up in the air, and it's a pretty simple thing. I think the biggest. I'm not as worried about Zubac, to be honest, but I think you very well could be right. I could be way wrong on that. I just believe in Kleba, believe in Lively, and PJ Washington even helping on him, and I think they've gone away from Zubac a lot the last few games. And I like the pace the Clippers have picked back up with Russ being back. I believe in the rest of the team now. I just need to see Kawhi to fully believe in them again. It's going to be interesting who Kyrie and Luka get stuck on. That's what it's coming down to for me. Is it going to be Paul George or is it going to be James Harden? And then who's going to perform? I mean, Russell Westbrook will get him a little bit, but not much. I think it's whoever gets Paul George and how they defend him because, I mean, they're going to throw their best defenders at Kawhi. So I think Harden and PG are going to need a big series. I'm not worried about, obviously, Kyrie and Luke. I think they're just going to perform unless Kawhi is superhuman on one of them. More likely Kyrie, but I doubt he even guards Kyrie there. But man, you don't think Lively can do anything against Zubac? Like, you don't think PJ Washington can help out there? That's what I want to push back on.
No, of course they can. I think you're going to see like Gafford and Lively are going to get run in this series.
Gafford,
yeah. My main point is that like I think that the configuration that allows Kyrie and Luka to focus on offense is a configuration where you play Zubac off the floor and you match up cleanly with their 3 best players. That to me is the direction that it goes. Like, like if you can get it to where the Clippers go to, whether it's PJ Tucker or some other guy, but maybe they just go with all athleticism and they go Kawhi, Paul George, Russ, who plays bigger than he is, Terrence Mann, who plays bigger than he is, and James Harden or something like that. Or maybe it's Norman Powell. Who knows? If you can get them to go small by playing Zubac off the floor, then you match up cleanly with Kleba on Kawhi, PJ Washington on Paul George, and Derek Jones Jr. on or Dante Exum on Harden. That's kind of the I'm more just talking about like that's the direction I think Dallas needs to try to play the series into. But those guys are going to play and they're going to be fine. I think depending on a super young player like Lively to be consistently impactful in a playoff series is not necessarily a great idea. And also Daniel Gafford doesn't have a lot of experience in that setting either. I think that'll be the direction they had. One other thing I wanted to hit on this series.
Yes.
So Luka has this thing that he does where like if he gets Luka feels comfortable in ISO against 99.9% of the players in the league. And so he reads the game and he goes like, oh, like I know that if I get blitzed, the ball is going to get worked to a lesser shooter. So, like, because this is not the 2022 Mavs where like it's constantly really good shooters that you're kind of deflecting things towards. Like there were some bad stretches in that playoff run where like that was Josh Green before he could shoot, where he would get some bad looks, or Frank Ntilikina was getting some burn in that playoff run. But for the most part, their best lineups, they had good shooters all over the floor. So blitzing was kind of a suicide mission. As a matter of fact, if you look back over the Luka era, they have been better against blitzing versus traditional coverages and pick and roll every year until this year. This is the first year where actually, if you can get Luka to get rid of the ball, if you blitz him, it actually benefits your offense. When the Mavs shoot out of pick and roll, their upper echelon team, if you make them pass out of pick and roll, out of traps, they're like I want to say they're like a 34 percentile scoring offense at that point. So that's kind of the direction you need to go. So this is where Kawhi comes in. I think if you put any other Clipper on Luka, he's just going to cook him in ISO to avoid the blitz, right? Because it's just really hard to double team someone in the open floor. But as soon as they switch Kawhi onto Luka, then he's going to start calling for ball screens because he's not going to want to work against Kawhi in ISO. That is where they can start blitzing. That is where they can start trying to make the lesser Mavs players shoot. So like the pathway to victory for the Clippers is Kawhi eventually guards Luka, they blitz, force the lesser shooters to shoot, and they get stops that way.
Yeah, then you just run into 79% Daniel Gafford, and he just makes everything within 10, 15 feet. But that's just amazing what he's doing. 22 straight field goals. He had a 33 field goal run earlier. My last question on this series is who gets eliminated from the Mavericks roster, because you can go 11, 12 different ways here. And I've been trying to figure this out, and it's so hard for me. I mean, it's a game by game thing, I think, but you could go down to 11, 12 guys easy, and they've played them 12 minutes or above, 14 minutes or above, 12 guys in the lineup. Who are you eliminating here? I mean, I'd probably, obviously the hot hand if Tim Hardaway Jr. or Dante Exum. I don't know.
I think the 8-man rotation is going to be the starter. So it'll be Luka, Kyrie, Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Gafford. And I think Gafford will be the center that plays just because Zubac is so strong.
Yes.
I think the only three guys we see off the bench for the most part in this series are Tim Hardaway Jr., Dante Exum, and Maxi Kleber. I think those are the only three guys you see.
Wow.
So Hardy and Powell will be out, and
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Green is out. I wouldn't be surprised if Jaden Hardy's out. I wouldn't be surprised if Derek Lively's out. Now, let's be clear. We know how this stuff goes. Every coach in the first few games of a series plays a 9 or 10 man rotation, just basically as a temperature check. Like, can you handle this? Like,
right.
And then you find out pretty quickly, like, this guy can, this guy can't. And that goes from series to series too. It's matchup based, but like they'll play guys. But my guess is when they get into game 3, 4, 5 of the series, it's going to be the starters. It's going to be Kleber. It's going to be Tim Hardaway. It's going to be Dante Exum, and that's going to be it, is my guess.
I was going to say Exum's got to be in the rotation. He's
for sure
damn good. Hardy does not surprise me. You know, Green does not surprise me based on how those guys' seasons have gone. Lively surprised me. I know you need the stockiness against Zubac because he is that kind of center that like that Andre Drummond, that Ivica Zubac, that Nurkic, where like even if you think they're losing their touch, they're not losing their strength. Um, but No Lively is fascinating to me. I think I'll wrap up by asking you more of a league wide question, and this is more of
Okay.
just a wild card to keep you on your toes before we let you go.
What do you
Which
get?
which player in this first round of the NBA playoffs with the matchups we know, or maybe even if you want to throw if you think it's a Heat or a
Theoretical.
Sixer or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. What player makes themselves the most money in this first round? Which player
Oh man.
which player says, "Hello, I'm here and I deserve twice the contract that you thought I did"?
Rudy Gobert.
I think if they paid him two times what
Already
he's making now, they
overpaid.
could run a small country with that.
Okay, let me think about this for a second. So there it's got to be a kind of like a high level role player who's somewhat underpaid at this point in his career. It's not going to be any, but let's go
Dante
through the
Exum,
West.
we just
So
discussed.
Dante Exum is a really good an example of a guy who's almost certainly going to get a mid-level exception next year, right? Like that's an MLE. That kind of is what that feels like to me.
Could be more, man.
Could be more. No, you're right. Could be more. Um, Man, this is a really good question. I'm gonna go with what about Peyton Watson?
Love it.
Mm,
Love it.
that's it.
He had the
Dark horse.
thing early on where it was like, oh, well, you better be as good as Bruce Brown. You know what I mean? Like people had that skewed expectation for him to start. They didn't just let him be P Watt, and that's
Hmm.
a damn good player. So I love that
Hmm.
pick. I would say my pick is DeLon Wright.
Nas Reed.
If I'm allowed to, if you're sleeping on Nas Reed, you're sleeping through an earthquake and a fire
No, he's
alarm
already
at
wrapped
the
up.
same
That
time,
contract's in the books.
and it's a steal. I would say, yeah,
Delon Wright's not a bad pick either.
DeLon Wright if the Heat make it, and then my cheating pick is Alex Caruso because teams are gonna go out in these playoffs with the way offenses are working right
Dude, he's
now
not even in the playoffs.
and say, "Damn, we could really use that guy." So that's why I said it's a cheating pick. It's not cheating if you say you're cheating before you do it.
Fair.
What if Chicago beats Atlanta tonight, which I think they probably will. I think it's a good
I
matchup for
agree.
Chicago. Um, what if Chicago then goes and beats Miami and Miami loses to Philly tonight?
DeMar's been on
What
a
happens to
heater.
Miami at that point?
That would be special. That
Like
would
no, but like
And
I mean like
Jimmy Butler.
if you're Miami and you don't actually make it to the first round of the playoffs, at what point do you finally go like, hey, we're not going to keep marching out this group that doesn't have enough firepower every single season?
well,
I mean, I think Jimmy Butler's a stable.
Rozier's out against Philly, so I think they have a built-in excuse. Maybe they'll keep
Yeah,
it pushing,
That would be a weak ass excuse,
and then
man.
Donovan Mitchell will be getting lots of calls from Rat Piley this summer. I think is the way that would go.
Rat Piley. Wow, that's a good one.
All right, well, Jason, it's 2 here on the East, so we're going to let you go because we know you have 19 other shows to go appear on. You're a man in demand, and that's for a reason. Thank you so much for sharing your analysis with us and just sharing the hour with us. This was a great talk. Anything specific over at the volume that you're working on that you want our listeners to go check out?
of course. No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Honestly, this has been a lot of fun. I enjoyed our little LeBron James debate earlier. I need to just send some clips over to Zach so I can remind him. I'm just
Please
kidding.
do. No.
So obviously just follow me on Twitter at _ Jason LT. That's where I kind of put announcements about the show and I occasionally share some thoughts. We just started doing film breakdowns on YouTube about 2 weeks ago, which has been a lot of fun. So I'll be doing again, our YouTube channels at Hoops Tonight. I have full series previews on all of the 4 series that are set except for Lakers Nuggets. I'm recording that one today, so that'll be out later. Really big deep dive film breakdowns for both the Suns Wolves series, which we didn't even talk about today, but I'm picking the Suns, and then also the Pacers Bucks series. And then we're going to be going live on YouTube basically after the final buzzer of every late game throughout the playoffs. So just check that out again on YouTube on Hoops Tonight. And then if you're on podcast feeds, it's also under Hoops Tonight.
Yes, sir. Well, don't miss out on
Awesome.
that.
Everybody give Jason a follow.
if you somehow listen to this pod
Hack
and
him.
don't, and if you somehow listen to this pod and you don't follow Jason, fix that. And make sure you keep tuning into this pod. We have great guests like Jason, maybe not as passionate about LeBron, Raymond, and James as Jason, but listen, man, I think you're damn right about that point. And I was ready to be like, top 5, really? And then I came up with 4 guys, and I was like, oh, the 5th guy's LeBron, isn't it? So that even with my different perspective, and you can see where that comes from.
This is our last chance to see it. This is going to be think of it this way. Whatever this series might be our last time ever getting to watch top 5 LeBron play. So I'm going to enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it.
And then we get to pull up the tweet from 2015. Like, oh, I'm so glad LeBron's 30. We're done with this shit soon. No, you're not.
How much funnier is that tweet now that Steph actually declined before LeBron?
Every single year it gets better.
That's a good point.
It's I don't think wine would be accurate, right? It's almost like it's more like a expensive cheese. Like it gets new, better flavors every year. Like it doesn't just age. It grows. All right, we'll let you go, Jason. Thank you so much. Go check Jason out at the Volume.
Appreciate it, bro.
Thanks, boys. See you next time.
All things NBA. Thumbs up, subscribe, you name it. We'll catch you soon.